as a freelancer for enhancing the growth in your own business. I have with me a couple of very interesting gentlemen. I have Vaibhav Sisanti, who is an extremely popular. Hi, Vaibhav. Do say hi to our crowd.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Yeah. I first met Vaibhav. I had the good fortune of meeting him at the SEMrush conference in 2019, where both of us were speakers. A very interesting person. He has a very interesting, eclectic mix of adventures. He's been through a lot. He was doing a lot of very cool stuff at Uber, if I may say so, Vaibhav. And right now he's doing marketing at Klook. Apart from being a very strong digital marketing influencer, I happen to be a very strong admirer of the man.
Thank you.
We also have with us Deepak Kanakaraju, better known as Digital Deepak. Another very strong digital marketing influencer, somebody that I personally admire. He also happened to be an ex-Razorpay employee, very interestingly enough, and today he runs his own digital marketing agency, a company named Pixel Track. A big welcome to both Deepak and Vaibhav to the show. Digital Deepak and Vaibhav, thank you for spending time. Thank you for agreeing to participate in this and adding value to the larger SME, startup, freelancer, and the entrepreneurial ecosystem in the country. Today we have for you some very interesting topics lined up, guys. Today we're actually going to be talking about what are some of the key playbooks, what are some of the key tricks that you can employ in your business, which are actionable, which are actually tangible, which can actually drive greater sales for you. We're going to be talking about the importance of customer segmentation, how you need to divide your entire prospect and your consumer universe into multiple segments, how you need so that you can target them better to enhance the ROI of your marketing efforts. We're also going to be talking about some interesting playbooks for enhancing your follower base. It's one thing to convert, it's another thing to engage. How do you engage and increase your follower base? And who better than Vaibhav and Deepak to talk through about that particular topic. What we will also talk about is what are some of the key rules of thumb and what are some key growth hacks that you can adopt in order to build landing pages that can convert really well. That's the other thing that we will be talking about. Towards the end of the session, of course, we do have a secret reveal, something that we will be talking through, and we also have some coupon codes specifically lined up that we will be revealing towards the end of the session. We encourage all of you to raise all of your questions in the Q&A section. We'll be going through them. We'll be spending a lot of time on that. I promise you towards the end of the session. That's something that we will be doing. Do feel free to tweet using the hashtag UnlockGrowth. Talk about your experiences at the webinar. Feel free to tweet. We also have some goodies and some giveaways for all of those tweets, which drive the maximum engagement. We have gifts of up to 5,000 rupees in Amazon vouchers lined up for those tweets, which can drive a lot of engagement. So do feel free to tweet about us, tweet about the webinar. That's something that we would really appreciate. To begin with, before we dive right into the topic, I think we've got to address the elephant in the room, the T-Rex in the room, which is COVID. Right. So as I said at the start, we do live in pretty interesting times, and COVID has brought about a lot of change in how businesses function. Right. The businesses have had to make fundamental shifts in the way they acquire customers, in the way they engage with customers. At Razorpay, we are luckily enough, we are in a vantage position and we have a ringside perspective into the goings on of the entire SME, startup, and the freelancer ecosystem in the country. We often think of ourselves as an index fund that sits on top of the entire freelancer, the startup and the SME ecosystem in the country. And we've seen a lot of categories which have really boomed. We've seen categories like EdTech, categories like health tech, gaming. All of them have seen significant upsurges for very obvious reasons because of COVID in the post-COVID new normal, which has been very interesting. We've also seen a lot of startups and SMEs come through from the rural hinterlands of the country. And just looking through some of the questions that are coming through and some of the chat transcripts, that certainly does anecdotally attest to the same fact. We're seeing a lot of businesses with very strong business fundamentals which are coming through. A lot of businesses that are coming through are businesses that are going digital for the first time ever. And they're actually going digital and accepting digital payments much earlier in their life cycle, even before building a very strong digital presence, which is again very heartening to note. And it is certainly a testament to the strength of the entire entrepreneurial ecosystem and in the entire country, which I think is extremely heartening as we crystal ball gaze towards the rest of the year and beyond. So here's a quick poll. So something that we would like to do, as we dive into the entire webinar is we would love to understand you guys a little better. So my good friend Deepak here is going to be initiating a quick poll, which will hopefully give us a very good sneak peek into your businesses and the kind of motivations you have, kind of inertia points that you have for acquiring customers. So Deepak, please do initiate the poll whenever you're ready. That really will help us understand you a little better. here's the thing.
You can simply select one of the options: student, professional, or entrepreneur. For a few people who can't see the poll, that is probably because you are on the web browsers. So you need to be on the apps to be able to see the polls. This will help us to, kind of guide you in the right way.
Sure. Thanks for that, Vaibhav. A little about me. As I said, take care of the SME business practice at Razorpay. I'm also a visiting faculty member in marketing at quite a few IIMs across the country. I also happen to be a marketing mentor working with various startup acceleration programs across the country. And one of the consistent questions that keeps coming up from a lot of these startups and SMEs is, how do I acquire my initial set of early adopter customers? How do I acquire that initial set of 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 early adopters, because I'm short on resources? So it essentially becomes a vicious cycle of sorts, because I don't have any existing initial set of early adopter customers. I'm not able to scale. I'm not able to validate product market fit. So I'd love to pick both Deepak and Vaibhav's brain on this. What are some of the hacks that early stage startups, freelancers, SMEs can adopt in order to acquire their initial set of early adopter customers? Deepak, you want to go for this first?
So thank you, Veda. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for welcoming the audience. So hello, everyone. Deepak here from digitaldeepak.com. So, whenever I think about, getting the first 10 customers, I have always, gone ahead and did prospecting and reached out. And, there are two things when you are trying to acquire customers online. The first thing is that you need the right targeting. You need to be targeting the right people to go and get them as clients or customers into your business. And you need to develop trust with them. Right. So if targeting and trust is taken care of, then they would become your customers. So you just need to reach out to the right people and then you need to convert them. So when you are trying to get your first 10 customers, the first 10 customers can always come from your own network, because the trust is already built. It could be from your professional network, it could be from your college, and whether it's B2B, if it is like low end B2C, then you have to go mass market. You probably have to do marketing. But if it's a B2B, just reach out to your network. And almost all the startups that I've worked with, the initial 10 customers came from networks, personal networks, professional networks of the founders, co-founders, and the professional network of the team working there. So that way, the trust is already built, and these people are also going to give you a good feedback on what is the product, and they won't be hesitating to give you honest feedback. So that would be the best way to go out, and that means that people need to have a little bit of a personal brand, LinkedIn, and professional network already built, which will help.
Thanks for that, Deepak. Vaibhav, some of your thoughts?
Brilliant. I mean, I would take up what Deepak just said. The easiest way of getting your first set of customers is to reach out to the people who you know or are in your network. And like Deepak rightly said, you need like a kind of a decent sized personal brand for you to be able to do that. But here's a very important thing that a lot of people will confuse with is, if you're trying to acquire your first 10 customers, if you go to your best friends, if you go to your family, they are not your customers, but they will still end up buying your product, because of which you won't get the feedback that you want to. So you have to be very cautious about who your first 10 customers are as well, right? You're not trying to just generate the first 10 customers revenue, but you're using that first 10 customers data to actually decide who the audience is going to be. So that becomes very important. Don't try to reach out to your father and say, swipe your card and get me the first sale. Don't be that person. That's not going to help you as a business. Right? A few things that you can definitely do is to get your first set of customers, right? Rely on your own network. So kind of expanding what Deepak just said, you have your social handles, build your social handles, start it right now if you haven't, right? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, which could be a very, very big social handle right now for all the businesses. Leverage something like a free webinar or a paid webinar or whatever that is, or give away a bait like a PDF or series of videos, which will get them excited about the product. As a result, you can generate leads. So a lot of times, right, what I feel is a lot of people rely on getting customers once the product is built. I'm a big believer of generating leads or having hot leads before the product even goes live. So you need to have a coming soon page. You need to have, you need to generate leads before even your product is ready. That way, you don't have to be, you're not beating your head around, how can I generate my first set of customers? So try to build a list, have a lead gen format right there, and build like a pre-launch kind of a list. That will definitely help you as a business.
Thank you for that, Vaibhav. Some nuggets of wisdom from both Deepak and Vaibhav. And one of the things that I'm personally passionate about, and it kind of saddens me when I look at the entire startup ecosystem in the country, is that there is a lot of focus on a couple of different aspects of media exposure. One being owned media and the second being paid media. Owned media is, of course, the exposure that you get from your own website, your own LinkedIn page, Facebook page. Paid media is, of course, the exposure you get when you spend money. But there is extremely limited focus on a third very important aspect of media exposure creation, which is earned media. The media exposure that you can create because you've earned it from the strength of content that you actually create, right? For example, social media shares are a great way for you to create earned media. Organic PR publicity is another great way for you to create earned media for yourself, something that you've earned for as a brand through the strength of your content. That would be another point that I would love to add over and above what Deepak and Vaibhav just mentioned. Shifting tracks slightly, I think as I said, at Razorpay, we've been observing that a lot of businesses are embracing digital payments for the first time. Most of the new merchants and the new businesses who are entering the Razorpay ecosystem are actually embracing digital payments for the first time in their lives, which is an extremely encouraging sign for the ecosystem and for the startup and the entrepreneurial community in the country. As they look to do that, one of the key questions that keeps coming up is, how do I validate product market fit, and how do I determine who my ideal consumer persona is? Deepak and Vaibhav, I know you've been through a journey yourselves, both as marketers and as people who are running their own successful businesses online. Vaibhav, you want to take this first? How would startups navigate this entire jigsaw puzzle?
Yeah. So first thing that you need to have a clear understanding is who your customer is, no matter what you're trying to do, right? You should build a product for the customer, not in return build a product and then find customers. That is a very important thing, which a lot of people again make mistakes, right? On. So as long as you know that, a lot of people kind of, don't stress about the fact how important a basic persona is of a customer, right? A lot of people don't focus on that. And a lot of people also think that persona is basically demographical. What do I mean by demographical persona? It's basically, okay, my customers are someone who is 24 to 30, who is a college graduate, or, who has an income slab. Right? That is demographic persona. But what is becoming more important is persona based on psychology, the psychological persona, or, the kind of actions people take becomes more important, right? You need to understand who your customer is and what they actually like right now, right? That is something called as physiological personas, as psychological personas, and you have to build those first. I think that is something that you can build first. And for that, there are so many tools out there which you can leverage for free. Like you can literally go to Facebook Audience Network. There is something, if you just look for Facebook Audience Network, it's the whole of Facebook data on your on a piece of platter, where you can experiment based on if somebody likes, let's say, if somebody likes Razor, what are the other kind of things that the person will leverage all this data to build a basic persona. I think that becomes very important. And also a few things to keep in mind when you're trying to identify your target audiences. Again, right, when we are operating a business in a country like India, our audiences are massive, and you need to have really deep pockets to be able to reach out to all the audiences out there. So in that case, you need to understand to tap into the right set of audience who have the spend capacity. That is one, because they should be able to buy the product, right? And also the other very important thing is, even if you have found a very small pocket of audience, you need to understand if the audience is actually scalable enough, the small spend capacity wala audience is scalable enough or not. So these are a few things that you have to keep in mind while you're trying to build your target audience, according to me. But again, right, try to understand the difference between behavioral and psychological personas. That will actually change how you look at business.
That's very interesting, Vaibhav. Deepak, before you start off, I'd just like to spend 30 seconds at this double clicking on a couple of points that Vaibhav mentioned that I found particularly interesting. One was his entire point about spending propensity. For example, before Razorpay, I used to lead marketing for a company called Healthify.me, which happens to be one of India's leading health and fitness mobile application now. And there, initially when we started off, the hypothesis that we started off with was the millennial segment is the one which is going to be our primary consumer persona. And we had, and we still do, a freemium business model, right? Wherein you've got the calorie counting aspect of the app, which is available for free. And then you've got personalized diet and fitness plans, which are available as a paid service. As it turned out, the older you are, in terms of, on the entire demographic spectrum, the more unfit you are, and you also have greater spending propensity. And as a consequence, it is not actually the millennial segment, but the guys who are on the older side of the entire age curve, who actually are the primary consumer persona from a conversion perspective for Healthify.me. So you can also let data decide. So you can start off with a certain gut-based hypothesis that you have as an entrepreneur in terms of who your primary consumer persona is. But over a period of time, you can let data correct or validate that initial hypothesis that you start off with. I just wanted to add to what Vaibhav just said. Deepak, over to you.
Yeah, in terms of trying to get your customer avatar right, it's going to be something that you start with a hypothesis first. You assume that okay, these are my customers. Let me go ahead and build a product for them, and definitely sell before you build the product. That is the typical MVP route. Everybody needs to take that route. And what will happen is that you come up with a hypothesis, and then either you prove that hypothesis to be right or wrong. And if it is wrong, then you retry it. And if it is right, then you go ahead and build on top of it. So when you do that, then eventually it's like, over time, you will end up knowing more and more about your customers, and you can try to, communicate with them better. And what I like to do is that, when you are trying to define your target segment, when we say that, okay, I'm going to target people who are like, for example, in my business, where I'm doing digital marketing training, I have students, professionals, and entrepreneurs. I just don't say that, okay, these students are going to be from 18 to 24, professionals are going to be from 25 to 34, and these are the entrepreneurs. I don't like just categorize them like that. What happens is that when you actually try to market to them, because you have this vague idea, your marketing message is not having a resonance there. People are not feeling like, hey, he's talking to me. So one of the simplest things that I do is that I do a survey, and then I have a community. I always recommend people build a community, and through content first, so that you have the community of people around you, and you can do some polls, you can ask questions, and actually, stalk people. You go ahead and look at their Facebook profiles, look at what they're posting.
Way, right, in a non-creepy way.
Yeah, in a non-creepy way, yes. and look at what they are posting, understand who they are, and talk to them, maybe get on a call, tell them that, hey, I'm giving a free consultation, and start with the content. And what you will understand is that, people will use certain words. For example, we think that our customer is frustrated, but frustrated is not probably the word that they are using. When you talk to your target audience, which are going to be in different niches, everybody is going to use different words. And what I do is that I record the call, I give it to my PA and ask her to transcribe it, and then I keep it on record. So I give it to my copywriter. So when the copywriter actually writes the marketing copy, he uses the same words that the target audience is using. And at the same time, when me or the copywriter writes the sales copy, we have like one target audience in mind. So for example, student, professional, entrepreneurs, when we do the entire survey, we get all the details, and then I post on the community who matches this exact profile. And people would reply, hey, I match this 99%, I match this 100%, I match this 60%. Go and take the person who is saying I'm matching 100%. And this is a real person. He is your perfect customer avatar. So my student customer avatar is Adarsh. I know a lot about Adarsh. He is like, 24 years old. He's just out of college, wants to learn digital marketing. And whenever I'm writing a mail or a blog post, which is targeted at this particular customer avatar, I have Adarsh in mind. So, when we think about customer segments, you can put like a circle around your entire customer segment, but instead of targeting the circle, you find out what is the center point of the circle. Because, as you move out of that circle, the audience will become vague and vague. But the problem with putting a circle is that, there will be always one person lying outside the circle, and you will keep trying to expand that circle. And then your message will become like vague and vague. It's just like, if I am in the, let's say, subway station, and if I am like calling, hey, everyone, then nobody is going to turn. And if I say that, hey, all the men here, then some people are going to turn. And if I say, hey, is there any doctor here? Then the doctors are definitely going to respond. So more specific I go, the better the audience response is, and the better the resonance will be. So that's how I would approach the entire problem. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you for that, Deepak. And one of the other things that we also used to do at Healthify Me and at Simply Learn, where I used to lead marketing before that, is we had this concept of a lead score, which essentially takes into account a whole host of demographic, geographic, and behavior attributes.
Yes.
And it essentially is a weighted sum. And essentially, what ends up happening is that quite often sales and marketing teams, for example, they get into debates saying that this is a cohort that we need to focus on versus that. What you can do is you can let arithmetic and data decide which is the cohort that actually works well for you, and you can remove all subjectivity out of the equation, and you can have a very objective decision. For example, at Healthify Me, we know that everything else being the same, an iPhone user tends to convert better than an Android user. Everything else being the same, I know that somebody who's on the older side of the age spectrum converts better. Everything else being the same, I know that somebody who's from a particular gender converts better. Everything else being the same, I know that somebody who has a lifestyle disease, for example, versus somebody who does not have any kind of a lifestyle disease converts better. So all of these different attributes are essentially fed into the lead score algorithm, and you come out with an arithmetic number, which is on a scale of 0 to 100. And on that basis, you decide which are the consumer cohorts that you want to go after. Which is again another way for you to use data to actually decide which are the cohorts that you really want to go after.
So one thing that I would like to add is, for a lot of people who are probably on the webinar, they probably don't have the data, that level of data to start with. And not every brand has the, has the luxury of enough data to experiment with. And a lot of times, a lot of brands have the data, but they don't know how to use it. That's a different story. But for brands or for people or brands or businesses which doesn't have enough data, right? For example, Deepak just said, I share it with Deepak shares it with his community. If you people don't have community, if you think you can't do it, that's actually not true. All it takes is 1,000 rupees of Facebook ads for you to get that level of reach and that level of understanding for survey data for you to come in, right? So be okay to spend some level of money to understand who your audience is. And once you have some level of data, try to define who are your better customers, who are not. As long as you're segmenting, basic level of segmentation is happening, you're probably better than 90% of businesses out there.
Yep, that's fair. Completely fair, Vaibhav. Now, the next one is something that's very close to my heart. The next topic that I would love to talk about, and I'd love to pick both Vaibhav's and Deepak's brains, is on this topic of repeat customers. I've been, part of a couple of different success stories. I've been a part of a couple of different businesses. One which essentially could not crack the repeat piece of the jigsaw puzzle, and one which successfully was able to. I'll just spend 30 seconds talking about the first one, which was a failed case, which I think is very important. We learn a lot more from our failures than we do from our successes. I do believe in that. In the first case, I used to, during one of my earliest avatars, I used to take care of marketing and product for an online company, an e-commerce company that sold Indian ethnic wear online. Langas, saris, kurtis, kurtas, etc. And it was primarily selling to the diaspora living abroad because they don't have access to high quality tailoring options, right? So bespoke customization options was the primary USP. It was unlike a lot of e-commerce companies in India. This was a company with very strong business fundamentals, strong EBITDAs, strong gross margins. But unfortunately enough, the ASP was fairly high, average selling price. So people used to buy a $300, $400 lehenga and then disappear for 2 years. They used to buy it for a Diwali or for a wedding and never used to come back. Now, this was a business that had strong business fundamentals, that had positive cash flow, strong EBITDA, strong gross margins, but VC funds, venture capital funds, wouldn't touch us with a barge pole because our repeat customers were so few, right? They found the businesses to be inherently risky because consumers were coming in through one door and leaving through the other. They were not sticking around, right? There was no stickiness in the business. So we were always dependent only on fresh acquisitions. That company still continues to grow, but it doesn't obviously have the kind of hockey stick growth that all of us, were originally aspiring for. So that's something that I would love to, understand from Vaibhav and Deepak in terms of how you solve the repeat piece of the jigsaw puzzle. Vaibhav, you want to go for this first?
For sure. I mean, I've done substantial amount of work in this space. So, I mean, I don't know for people, how many of you understand A3, R3 funnel? There is something called as a pirate funnel. Pirate funnel starts with awareness and always ends with referral, because referral is what keeps the cycle going, right? Referral is basically, I moved on to something else, but retention in the center is the piece which holds the whole funnel together, right? Now, the problem with a lot of businesses is, before I even jump to retention, right? For a lot of businesses which are profitable, which are heavily profitable, and there are a lot of businesses which run profitably being a one purchase businesses. That is, you acquire a customer once, he makes a purchase once, and you make 10x returns, and you are done. There is no problem with that because your LTV is only one cycle. Lifetime value of a customer is one cycle, right? But most of the businesses sadly don't fall into that case. For example, when I was doing marketing at Uber, right? I mean, a lot of people would take the first trip because you will get a 200 or 250 rupees off, right? A lot of people must have taken the first trip because they were discounted trips. But the problem was, once we acquire the customer, which will cost us about 700, 800 rupees, and top of that 250 rupees more for your free ride, you're costing us 1,000 rupees. You have to take the second trip, third trip, fifth trip, 10th trip to eventually build that LTV number in a way that we could make some money off you, right? But that was not happening. The reason is we were not focused on customer acquisition based on LTV. The idea was, again, this is also something which VC money does to your businesses. That is, growth at every cost actually eventually leads to this. But again, right, if you are focused on acquiring the right set of customers, that is the first basic principle that you have to fix. The moment you get somebody for free, you are going to get a quality of customer who's going to stay for free, right? Who wants everything for free. So we changed that model to something called as, we will give you 200 rupees off, but over the next 5 trips. So you get 50 rupees off on the next 5 trips. As a result, you're taking rides more, you're spending money with us. As a result, you're getting more accustomed with the product, and your propensity of spend is going up, and you swiping your card is also going higher. As a result, you get a better customer. That is one. Two is, when we talk about retention, right? I would say that acquire a customer who will retain with you for a longer time. The reason why I say that is because, getting a customer acquisition is cheaper, but leveraging an existing customer to make purchase is much, expensive. But using an existing customer to make a purchase again is much cheaper, because you can leverage your own channels. So the best thing that any business can do in this space is build products which are built for repurchases, not one-time purchase. That is fundamental thing that you have to figure out. Two is, have a life cycle. Even if you're a small brand, have a strong life cycle. What do I mean by that? Once a customer comes in, you have one form of communication with him saying that, okay, thanks a lot, thank you for purchase, and probably you have one more follow-up email or a communication saying, what did you think about the product? If it stops right there, right, the customer is going to forget about your product. So have a life cycle where you're hitting them up with content, hitting them up with more values, come up with products which are going to complement it, right? If you're selling, whey protein, have protein bars as well on top of that. Have BCCA also on top of that. If you're selling a digital marketing program, have much more deeper programs, understand how a customer will flow, and eventually build products around it so that the customer will jump from 1 to 2nd to 3rd and 4th. And for this to happen properly, right, your product has to be strong. If you're not able to wow your customer at the first step, you lost it already, right? Yeah. So those were my 3 cents, not 2 cents, but 3 cents.
Thanks for Vaibhav, very insightful. Digital Deepak, do you want to take a stab at this?
Yes. So in this, I would slightly differ from Vaibhav's opinions, where I would like to acquire customers for free. But one of the problems with probably a model like Uber, where you are getting customers who are trying to get it to use for free, is that there is a cost to deliver the service, because the cab is running from one place to another. There is a driver involved, there is a fuel involved, so people can't get something for free. However, if you are having a digital product, it could be an information product like an ebook, free webinar, it could be a video course, it could be a free video or whatever it is, or it could be like a digital product like a SaaS tool. A lot of SaaS work on freemium. It could be like a free tool, proposal generator for freelancers or whatever it is. Then this particular free tool is not costing you anything to give away. So when you actually start with free, it could be free content also. Blog post is free content. So what I would say is that there is no such thing as a one-time customer, repeat customer. It's not like very binary like that. The way I would like to, look at it is that I call it moving the free line. So at the left end of the spectrum, you have the free thing that people are consuming, which becomes like the attraction mechanism for getting people into your funnel. And then when you look at it on a broader perspective, even though they are not paying you money, they are still paying you something, and they are paying you attention. And in this day and age, getting people's attention is not easy. So we have like 1,750 people live in this webinar, and they are paying us attention, which is also a form of payment, right? Because time is money. And you start with the free, and then you sell something like a tripwire. So what I do is that I give away free content out on the web, YouTube, my blog, free webinars, and all that is free. Free courses I give. And then I have a 99 rupees product. And I would target, let's say, have 1 lakh customers at 99 rupees, which will give me 1 crore revenue. And even if I have to spend 1 crore to acquire those 1 lakh customers at 99, it's fine. I don't want to make any profit from it. Then I will have a 1,000 rupee product, and I will try to get 10,000 customers, which is 10% of this. So the 99 rupee product becomes my lead generation mechanism. I don't need to generate leads and do lead scoring and see if these leads are quality or not. If I have like, if I have like 1 million people on my email list, and let's say 100,000 people or 1 lakh people buy my 99 rupee product, the 99 rupee product buyers, it could be like an ebook, it could be like a course, it could be like an email course or text-based course, in my business at least. So what happens is that they are qualifying themselves. They are saying that, hey, I'm qualified because I'm paying 99. And then I would probably try to get 1,000 customers at a 10,000 rupee price point. And then I just need 100 customers at a 1 lakh rupee price point to make 1 crore in revenue. So that is how I would build my funnel. So here, basically, I'm moving the free line right from free to like a 1 lakh rupee product.
Yeah.
So that way, let's say my entire goal, I don't even think about LTV. My entire goal is to, just make 1 crore in revenue by selling that 1 lakh rupee product to 100 customers. And whatever I do before it, I can break even with it. I don't mind.
Yeah.
I can spend all on marketing and I just break even with the acquisition cost. It's fine. End of the day, I'm getting those customers. It would be much, much more difficult to get those 100 customers to pay 1 lakh rupees if I'm trying to go and hunt for them directly. I need a filtration mechanism. So rather than calling it a funnel, I would call it like a sieve, because if you pour something into a funnel, everything comes down. But if you have like multiple stages of sieve, then you are like filtering out people, and then you are getting that residue of the best customers who are there for your business.
Interesting, Deepak. The marketing sieve is an interesting addition to a marketing funnel. That's an interesting way of looking at things. Thank you for that. And just on the topic of repeats itself, I spoke about a failure story, right, where we couldn't actually turn things around when I was part of that e-commerce company which was selling Indian ethnic wear, because the nature of the category itself was such. Obviously, we're not lucky enough to be Uber, where people will have to take multiple trips in a given month. But the nature of the category itself was such that people used wear, because this was a very high, this was a pretty expensive item that they were actually spending on. And we found it extremely difficult to turn around the entire repeat story. We had a very similar experience at Simplilearn, where again, the average selling prices were very high. Right? People were spending 12,000, 13,000 bucks and taking up a digital marketing certification. So it was very difficult for me to go and tell the guy and convince the guy to spend another 15,000 bucks in taking another certification when they've just spent 12, 13,000 bucks, which is a pretty significant investment in picking up one certification. But at Simplilearn, we managed to turn it around by following the concept of a learning path. We said that as a brand, we pivoted around to the fact that we're not just selling a course to you, but we're actually selling you a learning path. So what we said was, you're here at the base of this mountain now, and you need to reach that aspirational peak, which is maybe your CMO role, which if you're part of the marketing track, which is the chief data scientist role, if you're part of the data science track, and you're not done after you've taken one course. You're here at the base of the pyramid, base of that mountain. You need to take these additional 3 courses to reach that peak. So using that kind of an approach, wherein we pivoted the entire brand to focus on selling the concept of a learning path, as opposed to selling a course, which made it an extremely transactional relationship, we managed to push the envelope on repeats. That's some food for thought for all of the audience. The other thing that I would love to talk about, and I know that both Deepak and Vaibhav have touched upon it briefly during some of the earlier conversations that we were having during the initial part of the webinar. But Vaibhav and Deepak, very quickly, if you could spend 60 seconds each on just talking about how to engage your followers. Just give us maybe 2 quick rules of thumb or 2 quick hacks that early stage startups can employ, because you've got a vicious cycle, right? You need an initial set of seed investment in your community for you to grow your community. Where do you start from? How do you build a community? How do you engage the community?
All right. So, Vaibhav, you can go. In the meantime, I will launch the next.
I think it's going to be the same. I think it's going to be the same answer from both of us. It's going to be create valuable content, because we've been doing this together for a very long time, right? So a lot of times, most of the brands or most of businesses, again, the same point, the number of touch points that exist for a customer with a brand is going to be very low, because the brand only wants to do things which are particularly making them money directly, right? We have to think beyond that. So Deepak does a lot of webinars as well. I have started to do a few webinars. You are in one of the webinar done by a brand, which is doing with a no monetary purpose. This is creating content. This is engaging customers, existing customers, by giving them value. I think that is basically the one-line answer. Create content. You can create content in multiple formats, but create content which is valuable, which is for your customer, which will help your customer, is basically the one-line thing that you can do to engage your audiences.
Sure.
So the poll results are out, and we have 51% of the people who have sold something online before, but 49% have never sold anything online before. So for guys who have never sold anything online before, and for the people who have already sold something online, we have something very interesting to show towards the end of this webinar. And stay tuned for it. Where were we?
Just on the topic of building and engaging your community, Deepak, any quick nuggets of wisdom?
So there are multiple, things that you can do to engage your community. And, one thing is that so what I have learned to understand is that there are different levels of communities as well. Previously we talked about, free and this entire moving the free line. So what I have seen is that we have a community called Learn Digital Marketing on Facebook. It has 200,000 members. Right now it's 197,000. And when you are putting people into a community for free, then you have to be the person who is always kickstarting the entire thing, and you need to be someone who is kind of like front-ending the entire thing. There might be a few content curators who will try to promote, but they are also going to be a little bit self-promotional. That's what happens with free communities. So with free communities, it becomes like your content channel. You can run polls, but there has to be curated content posted by the team, posted by yourself, and you have to continuously engage people. You can run contests. Like, for example, I have done things like meme contest. I've asked people to, create content contests, write something. Contests are like a great way to engage people. And right now there is a contest going on. By the way, if you go ahead and tweet, guys, you will be winning Amazon vouchers worth 5,000. Go ahead and give a feedback for this webinar, and maybe, take a picture of the webinar right now and put it on Twitter. It's there on your chat box. So that is one thing. So when it is free, then you need to be the spearheading the content. When you are creating communities where people are paying to enter that community, like a club or something, and there can be different levels. The further you go, what you can do is that you can kind of bundle the community access with the products that you sell. And the more you go towards the right side of the higher price point, the more you will see that the community is engaging itself, because they are finding themselves in the company of, very, very high quality audience. People are like naturally, trying to help each other. So I have something called a digital marketing club, which is for, people who want to learn digital marketing, get access to tools, learn from each other. And I created that club, and I thought I need to do a lot of things myself, but people are just helping themselves, and everybody is like, hey, this is amazing, this community is amazing, because there is a filtration, there is a price point. It's just like if you join Stanford or Harvard, it's not the content that is valuable, right? Content is available online all over the place. You have books. It's just the community or the network that you get into.
Actually, the opportunity to be a part of that entire community. You're saying that is what drives it. Very interesting, Deepak. Thank you for that. And just on the topic of community, one of my very good friends had started this company called Preg Buddy a while back. Some of you might have heard of it. Now it happens to be, which essentially is a mobile application, a watering hole, a community for pregnant moms to come together. And these guys have grown from 0 to 1 million users at zero marketing spend. And they essentially started off as a WhatsApp group. Right? Then they created multiple WhatsApp groups, and obviously you reach a cap pretty soon. And the interesting thing about this community is that you've got extremely high engagement, both in terms of frequency and in terms of recency. And one thing that you would notice is that a lot of these communities, there is a lot of slicing and dicing of these communities. So you would see Trimester 2 moms in South Mumbai, for example, Trime 1 moms in Koramangala in Bangalore, right? So you would see a lot of these groups where you have a lot of like-minded people getting together. So extremely high engagement. Because there is also a very strong gatekeeping process that is followed to make sure only the right kind of people come in. So there is and obviously enough, there is extremely high churn. Obviously, at the end of the 9-month period, the pregnant moms leave the application, but you've got new people coming in all the time, which contributes to the high engagement. And something that I've noticed in a lot of very strong communities is that it's not a monologue or a dialogue, but it is a multi-log with multiple people essentially participating in the conversation. To begin with, a lot of good brands which have been successful in driving strong community adoption have been those which have managed to drive very strong multi-logs. And in their early phases, at least, they do have some moles who are inserted in the community, who masquerade as being members of the community, but who inject and incite conversations. So that's also something important for you guys to keep in mind.
I would like to add one more thing to that, because you mentioned, there are like, different communities for people who are in different categories. And one thing I have observed with communities is that, people connect with people when there is something common base to connect, if I meet you in a conference and we have never met before, and we find out that, hey, you went to the same school that I went, suddenly there is a feeling of, hey, connection. And even if you lie that, you went to that particular school, I would still become friends with you, because people are just looking for a reason to say that, oh, we have this in common, so I will connect with this person. So what I have done in my communities is that I have created breakout rooms types, multiple small WhatsApp groups. By the way, one word of warning for people who want to try to build communities: if your product is not like 99.9% perfect,
I was about to
say it's a very dangerous thing, because it will just accelerate, your brand will go to the ground, because, a lot of times, when I have launched products, when I have not done a good job with the products, I had like communities, and, one person starts talking negative and everybody starts talking negative. Sure. So it's a very dangerous thing. But if you have like a good product, very high quality product, good support, that is non-negotiable, then what you can do is that you can, segment your customers, put them into like small groups. So what I have done is that I have put, people into like, okay, 1,000 people are joining my mentorship program. okay, this is a WhatsApp group for all the people from Chennai, all the people from Bangalore, all the people from Delhi, and they do like offline meetups. Obviously, before the lockdown, they used to do offline meetups, and then they used to like send me pictures. Hey, Deepak, all your students have met in Chennai. So that becomes like, you know, a very powerful thing. You know, any community who wants to like, you know, any brand who wants to build communities, you need to get those details from the customers and put them into separate groups, but also have like one big group on top for general discussions, and then have separate groups where people are like really bonding with each other.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Deepak. And I think the three of us have spoken a lot about pushing the envelope on top of the funnel, engaging with followers, etc. Now let's spend a little bit of time in talking about conversion, right? Once you get people to your digital asset, be it your website, your Insta page, your Facebook page, whatever it is, how do you build landing pages that can convert really well? And this is a topic that brings a smile to my face quite often. For example, I just go back to the experience that we had at Simplilearn when we first launched the blog. When the blog had already seen some traction, and we realized that it's now time for us to monetize this, right? We need to start building a very strong lead subscriber base. We've done a really good job of SEO. We were getting a lot of traffic. Now we also wanted to monetize this and make sure that we managed to extract the maximum juice possible. The business teams were obviously very greedy, and they launched a pop-up, right? As soon as somebody landed on the blog, which would ask people to sign up as a lead. And we noticed that bounce rates started skyrocketing. And then what we did, and what we ended up doing was, and we got into this huge debate, product design, who are trying to optimize for customer experience versus business, which said that we're not doing this, we're not doing charity here. We also want to monetize the traffic that we get on the blog. What we then did was we said that, okay, fine, let's have some kind of a time delay built in. We increased it 5 seconds to 15 seconds. We noticed that the bounce rate was still high. We made that higher, 25, 35. We noticed that 45 seconds was that Lakshman Rekha, or that inflection point where the bounce rate was no different than what it was in the absence of any kind of a pop-up. So we knew that if we introduced a pop-up at a 45-second time delay, we were not causing any kind of a degradation to customer experience, but we were able to extract incremental business value. That was a learning experience that we went through. And I'm sure Vaibhav and Deepak, you must have your own experiences. Would love to pick your brains on what are some of the tips and tricks that you would recommend for building landing pages that convert?
So, I have I am a digital marketer. I am in the business of building landing pages and everything, but I will give you like a very different perspective on landing pages. Landing pages have become a vanity. What I have discovered is that if you are doing like a free webinar, if you are going ahead and doing a lot of content creation like what we are doing right now, and if you are building like a very strong brand, people will just close their eyes and buy. You can have a landing page, you can have the details, but the amount of details that is there on the landing page is not going to affect too much on how we are going to get the conversions, because people are very wary right now. Trust is a very, very scarce resource out there. And imagine if all the people today here on the webinar who have got so much value go to a Razorpay landing page, the conversion is going to be high. And if you drive cold traffic to that landing page, the conversion is going to be low, and it is nothing to do with the landing page, right? And there is no metric to measure how people perceive your brand in their minds. And what I have discovered over time is that I used to get so obsessed with, hey, what is the right headline? What is the right color for the button? First scroll, last scroll, everything. And end of the day, I discovered that it doesn't matter much as long as I keep building my brand, and as long as the brand value keeps increasing, then automatically the landing page starts converting better. Even today, I am getting like a better CTR on Google search. I am getting a better CTR on Google paid search, better CTR on Facebook, because people have been like, okay, I have heard about Digital Deepak somewhere. Oh, this guy ad, so the CTR goes up. Exact same Facebook ad with the same image, same content copy, but from some other person is going to have a lesser CTR. So how can we explain that? So definitely there are some hacks. You can go ahead and put like a countdown timer. You can tinker around. Having like a bold headline and things like that are important, but end of the day, it comes down to branding. So whatever you have, go ahead and try to build your brand, create content, and have like a very clear brand positioning in the market, for a particular category. Like for example, if we think about, let's say professional networking and LinkedIn and growth hacking, Vaibhav comes to mind because he has kind of positioned his personal brand like that. When you think of payment gateway, then Razorpay comes to mind. So end of the day, landing page, even if you don't have a landing page, you give the payment link directly. Most of my webinars, I don't get people to landing page. I just talk to them, go make the payment, Razorpay payment link, I will give them directly. They will go ahead and just make the purchase.
That's a very interesting point, Deepak, and certainly I can attest to that. And Razorpay data clearly shows that businesses are actually skipping a step and they are in a hurry to actually receive payments from their customers. So they're not really waiting to build a very strong digital presence, and they are cutting to the chase. And they are also actually looking for easy to use, easy to adopt options for actually receiving payments from customers, which is very interesting. And to your other point on building a very strong brand, which essentially has ripple effects on driving better, lower bounce rates, better conversion rates, etc. At Razorpay, we had this very interesting campaign called Unlock Growth that we ran for a 3-week time frame last month. And all of a sudden, obviously, it helped us accelerate customer acquisition. But all of a sudden, what we noticed was our funnel conversion rates were better, our bounce rates were lower, landing page lead conversion rates were much better. So certainly, attest to what you just said. Vaibhav, you want to give us a quick stab at this?
Sure. I think what Deepak said makes sense, but it only works when you have a brand, right? Yes. Most of the people probably are running the first landing page, first website. And also, right, when you're not niche, I still I'm a huge believer of data, huge. And I still feel landing page optimization is probably one of the most important skills that a marketer has to acquire today, right? But again, right, there are a few things that we have to keep in mind when you're building a landing page. One is that you need to get your authenticity. You need to be super authentic. You have to show your authenticity and also be very clear on what you're positioning on the landing page. Because I'm talking on a perspective of people coming to your page who have no idea who you are, or who have no idea what the brand is. The reason why people are ready to, are probably skipping a step at Razorpay is because they have heard of Razorpay so many times that they know that you are a payment gateway. But all of a sudden, I come up with a payment gateway called as Sysindi.com, right? And I say that I only charge 0.5% transactional fees while Razorpay charges 1%. Will people convert as well as a Razorpay does? Absolutely not, right? So when you are a cold audience, when you have an audience which is super cold, then if I'm trying to build a landing page and I'm trying to be a competitor of Razorpay, then I talk about how Uber is using me, how Amazon is using me, how Flipkart is using me, how my cancellation rate or how my default rate is 30% less than Razorpay, and showing case studies. All of a sudden, all these things becomes important, which Razorpay doesn't even focus on. Right? So understand who is coming in, understand where your brand stand, and understand who you're trying to acquire, right? That is one. Two is credibility. Like, again, I covered the point of credibility in a way where you're trying to show your, let's say you've got featured somewhere. Let's say you have some big brands, put them up so that people will be like, okay, this guy, the brand is not some chota mota brand that I have not heard of personally, but they seem to be big. That is true. Three, something a lot of people kind of, sideline it is speed. Speed of loading becomes such an important one. I know I'm getting a little technical here, but how quickly does your landing page open? I click on a Facebook ad. How long does it take for the landing page to open? If it takes more than 2.5 seconds or 3 seconds in India, people are going to bounce. Right? And I've seen this. So multiple techniques that you can use. And obviously, easy payment option is very, very important. If you're adding too many steps, right? First, someone clicks on your buy now button. After saying, boss, I want to buy, you're saying enter your details first. And once he enters his details, you go to the second page saying, okay, enter more details for me, or check if this, check that. So reduce that, get to the step of people making a purchase, right? And finally, something that works really well for a smaller brand is FOMO, fear of missing out. That is, you need to make people take action right then and there. If people are not taking action, they're going to forget you unless you have enough money to keep reminding them again. So try to make people take action in the right second. Can I share my screen and quickly show something?
Yeah, go ahead, Vaibhav.
Okay. So let me quickly show you something. And just like I told you a few parameters, right? I'll show you how it works. This is my 5-day workshop landing page on LinkedIn. You can see the first thing that I basically do is I have a video right in place for people who don't know who I am or who don't have any idea of what it is. A clear title.
It helps that you're so good looking, so you can put yourself on the top.
I'm not good looking. It's just a good picture, right? And then one very important thing is first fold button. That is, the moment the person is on the page, he should be able to click on a button. The call to action has to be very clear, right? And then you see where I spoke about credibility. For people who don't know who I am, all of a sudden I'm putting in credibility saying that I've been featured in all these places. Then I have a free flowing flow talking about testimonials. Again, I'm reminding about credibility, right? And authenticity of this product. And if I scroll below, right, again, I'm talking about more brands, like kind of people I've worked with, testimonials. All these factors play a very, very, very important role in converting a user into a customer. Now, again, right, something that you have to quickly check. I'm showing something called as Hotjar right now. This is a very, very powerful thing. When you're building a long landing page, right, you need to understand how a customer is actually interacting with your page. You have no idea how a customer is interacting with your page. Is the customer even scrolling till here to check these testimonials? If it's not, I probably should delete it because the loading page is actually going down. So Hotjar is a tool which will basically give me where users are clicking so that I get an idea of what are the kind of things our users are clicking. And this is data beyond a user just coming onto the page, right? This is more data than where user is clicking. How is the user interacting with your website? And this is like the scroll feed. I can also check 83% of my visitors are scrolling till here. That basically means my button is placed properly, right? If I scroll below, my testimonials are kicking in here. And I know 59% of people are scrolling till here. So leverage data to understand how your customers are interacting. I mean, this can do quite a lot. It can do like spooky stuff like you can literally watch recordings of customers as well, though it's totally anonymous and you don't know if Veda was the visitor, but you can take insights and take data here and try to optimize your landing page in a way that it works for your business. There is no right way or wrong way of building a landing page for your customer.
Very interesting. Thank you for that, Vaibhav. And of course, one of the things you do need to keep in mind is make sure it's mobile optimized. It renders well on mobile, and also make sure that your website works and functions really well. Vaibhav spoke about speed. It works even well for flaky or weak data connections, because the next wave of growth for a lot of digital businesses will not just come from tier 1, but will come from tier 2, tier 3 and below. As I said, data at Razorpay as well shows that we have a lot of businesses who are coming in from the rural hinterlands of the country who may not necessarily be used to Wi-Fi and 4G high-speed networks. So that's something for you to keep in mind as well. Do make sure that you build for the next wave of growth that's going to come through in India, which is not just tier 1 India. Do keep that in mind. अब थोड़ी धंधे की बात करें. Vaibhav and Deepak, we've spoken a lot on top of the funnel. We've spoken a lot about engagement.
I just want to run one more poll, and I would like to.
Can we turn the chat on so that we get an idea of where customers? If you can turn the chat on, and guys, let us know what you guys think about this. Are you guys having fun? Are you guys learning something out of this? Drop some booms in the comment box. Awesome.
Fantastic. And by the way, we are trending number 17 on Twitter right now. I just checked. Probably less than that right now for hashtag unlock growth.
That's really good.
Veda has got something interesting to present in this board meeting.
Absolutely. Thanks to you guys. Just shifting topics, when it comes to actually getting customers to pay, right? How do you get them to, the holy grail, right? Where you actually have to get people to open up their wallets, flip out their credit cards, debit cards, etc., and pay you, which is that leap of faith that you need your prospects to actually make. What have been some of the options that you've used in order to receive digital payments from customers? We know that digital adoption is on an upswing thanks to the post-COVID new normal. What have been some options that you've used? And I hope, Vaibhav, the talk of you opening a payment gateway was hypothetical. You're not actually thinking of opening one, right?
It is. But I'll tell you what, in terms of experience, right, I love how things have changed. 2.5 years back, not 2.5 years, actually 3.5 years back, when I was running my old startup, Crazy Heads, right? We were delivering a lot of e-commerce websites built on WordPress. And for that, we needed payment gateways, right? I won't name the payment player, but I know how painful it was to get a payment gateway up and running.
So obviously you're not talking about Razorpay. So yeah.
No, I'm not. Yeah. Right. The documentation involved, the amount of it used to take 5 to 6 days for the approvals to come in, and then API integrations, and then you needed a tech person to be able to integrate it. It was a painful process, right? So right now, I mean, I wouldn't just say Razorpay. A lot of payment partners have started to leverage tech, have understood the stack of tech stack that people are using. For example, WordPress, Wix, what was that? Shopify, anything for that matter. Seamless integrations makes it brilliant. But I mean, I can tell that Razorpay is not paying me for this. But but I can say that out of all the players that I've used right now, one of the reasons why I agreed to do this webinar for free is because how easy you guys make it to start. For example, I will tell you, I was using a different payment gateway and it failed at 2 o'clock in the night. Okay. The payment gateway was down and I was not using Razorpay back then. The payment gateway was down. I was like freaking out because my ads are running and I'm losing money every minute. Right. And that is when I said, okay, let me try Razorpay. And I opened Razorpay, registered, and I had an account, KYC, everything was done with like 5 or 6 minutes. And I couldn't directly register. I couldn't integrate it with my website, but I could quickly replace it with a payment link where I could collect payments. And I did that for the next 3 hours before the other payment gateway went live. So I think that shows the power of a payment gateway today. And I think Razorpay is doing a brilliant job there. But again, right, you have to make it easy for customers. So less paperwork, instant activation, and easiest way of possible integrations are a few things that have made life really easy without having an external developer in-house. I'm not a developer.
Yeah, it's fantastic to note, Vaibhav. And it's great to hear the customer perspective there. At our end, one of the great things for our business and our business model is the fact that the majority of our fresh acquisitions today are through self-serve, without any kind of human involvement. We don't necessarily need a sales guy to pick up the phone, have a conversation with that startup or the SME, which essentially is a very strong validation of product market fit and the maturity of the market itself. Right? And people actually understand the need for digital payments and are willing to sign up and start accepting digital payments, even in the absence of having to speak with a salesperson, because all of the information is available. There is no information asymmetry whatsoever. Which is very, very interesting, and certainly whatever you just said attests to that fact. And one of the points, and I speak to a lot of SME and startup prospects and customers, regularly. And one of the things that consistently keeps coming through is the fact that they do feel intimidated by this entire aspect of digital. They do feel intimidated by this entire aspect of technology. So some of the points that you spoke about, having payment options, having options for receiving payments from customers, which requires zero tech work. So even if you don't know a line of coding, even if you don't know anything about technology, the option of being able to receive digital payments from customers in the absence of anything such as this, that's something which is a huge blessing for the entire startup and SME ecosystem. And on that note, at Razorpay, we've launched something called Payment Buttons. We had a big bang PR announcement on this yesterday. And this has been a huge hit amongst the SME and the startup ecosystem in the country. This is something which people have been asking for a long time. This literally means that in less than 5 minutes, you can actually go live and start receiving payments from your customers. We already have Digital, who's a big time. Already have Digital Deepak, who is a big time advocate and a user of Payment Buttons. Deepak,
why don't you show it to people, man?
Yes.
Yeah. Deepak,
so that's what I was looking forward to. So I will show you how simple it is to build a payment button. So what I have done is that I have logged in into my Razorpay account, and I will share my
screen. Your screen. Yeah.
So here we are inside my Razorpay account, and let's say I want to create a payment button. So I would go and click on this particular category payment button. I will click on create payment button and quick pay, donations, buy now, custom button. So let's go with the simple quick pay. And what I need to do is that I need to put the title here. So let's say blogging course, and this is the quick pay button, donations button, buy now. So I can use any type of payment. So if I go ahead and do quick pay, then this is quick pay. So let's say blogging course, the amount, let's say I'm going ahead and saying, okay, this will be 1,000 rupees. The button label can be pay now or buy now. So whatever I want to put here. And Razorpay Dark, Razorpay Light, Razorpay Outline. So this is Razorpay Outline. That's my favorite. You can have like a light theme. You can have like a dark theme. You can go ahead and have a brand color as well if you want. So whatever brand color you have already configured will be the brand color. Or I can say sign up now. Now I will go and click on next. I can add the fields that will show up. And then I can go ahead and click on next. And this is how it will be. So I will just go ahead and click on create. And the button is now created. So what I need to do is that I need to take this code and I can put this on any website I want. So it can be a landing page, it can be WordPress or wherever it is. I will just copy it and put it on a landing page. And I can also send like a payment receipt. I can configure, how these receipts will be. And, input field receipt. And if it is a donation, I can put ATG. And I also want to redirect customers to the thank you page, so that I have my Facebook pixel there, so that I can track the conversions. I can show a custom message and I can redirect them to a particular page. So what I have done is that I have, just already built a payment button. And if you go ahead and, look at this 100-day lead generation course, I've already created a payment button. And I took that, HTML code and I went ahead and installed it on my landing page. So I use Instapage for my landing page. I've also put it on my WordPress blog. I have put it on my WordPress blog itself, which is like a donate link, which I will show you. So one moment. So let's go to digitaldeepak.com. And here you can see this is the payment button, which is donate now. This is for WordPress, but what I have done is that here I have basically gone ahead and put the HTML code in my landing page. And if you double click it, you can see, this is like, form script, that's it. And it gives like cdn.razorpay.com. One particular JS file is loading. There is a payment button ID, and that's about it. The simplicity of this is like simply amazing. And, once I have put it here, you can see this is my landing page. And in my landing page, if people visit, click on pay now, then this pop-up will come. So no need of any technical integration, API or anything. I wanted, these kind of payments on my website for a long time, but I have never got around to hiring a developer for it, putting like an e-commerce store. I just want to put a payment button on a landing page, and especially people who are just getting started. Freelancers, SMEs, they have like a particular product. They just want to create a page on Wix, WordPress, Instapage, whatever it is, they want to collect payments. So here, the conversions are going to be higher because the pop-up comes on the website itself. It does not redirect to a landing page where you have to make the payment separately. And what I have discovered is that I have been doing some testing, and this is giving me higher conversions. So here people can just, enter their email. So let's say I put my email, I put my phone, click on proceed to pay. Huh?
Is that your phone number?
No. So I have done that mistake before. So, random phone number. So now, people can pay via UPI, wallet, net banking, card, and within card you have like, all the payments. There are like saved cards inside Razorpay. So whenever someone pays via Razorpay and through some other website. So what I have observed is that, based on my data, around 50% of the people who pay via cards, their card is already stored with Razorpay, which means that they don't need to enter their card number again. It's already saved, and they just need to enter an OTP and CVV, and then the payment goes through. And once the payment is done, it will automatically redirect to a thank you page where people can go and subscribe. And even if I try to quit, then it will say, are you sure you want to quit? So, there is a little bit of stickiness there. And the technology that, enterprises and big companies have been using, who have like a tech team with a tech guy sitting there and, doing all this, which are like funded companies, the power of, their payment system is now available, for us as well. And, here there is another payment link. That's not the Razorpay payment link. And you can see that, there is like a redirection, and then it goes to another page. So I won't click on it right now. But this is like a much preferred way. So I will be replacing this button with this button because this button redirects to another page. And I wouldn't name, where it redirects to right now, but you get it. It redirects to a page, and then you have to pay, and then it goes to like, so there is like one more step, involved in the, entire thing. So, what I will do is that I will go ahead and, share this particular page with you. So if you want to see it in action, you can see it in action. Not necessarily to drive sales for this particular product. That is not the, goal here, but, just if you want to see it in action, you can see it in action on how it looks. Click on pay now. So both the payment flows redirect to the same product, and, that's how it is. So what do you think about payment buttons? Let me know in the chat box. Go ahead and, give us feedback. What do you think? Isn't this simple? Isn't this awesome? So I will just open up the chat box for chat, and you can also go and tweet about it, the payment button. So
I'm looking forward to TV ads with Deepak on it.
Sure, absolutely, man. Let's do that.
So yeah, I mean, people are like absolutely mind blown with the kind of simplicity that payment button brings. And
yeah,
here you can see, fantastic.
It's pretty cool, man. Thank you so much, Deepak, and thank you, Vaibhav, for all those, for that demo and some of the kind words that you spoke about Razorpay. And one of the things that we would like to talk about, we've been talking about this for a while now. We spoke about us giving 50,000 free credits. So essentially, you can receive payments up to 50,000 rupees without any cost involved. All you need to do is to use this coupon code that I'm putting up here in the chat window right now. It's button 50K. I think it's getting lost in this or lost, but we will make sure that we read.
Yeah, I will just switch off the chat once more.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So I'm just going to paste it once again. It's button 50K. So if you are not an existing Razorpay customer, please use this coupon code and you should be able to receive 50,000 rupees without any cost being involved. If you are an existing Razorpay customer, all you need to do is to fill in your details in this particular Typeform link that I'm going to be giving you on the chat window right now. Has my colleague already shared that? Yeah, my colleague Shivani has already shared the Typeform link. So all you need to do is spend 30 seconds and give your details here in this Typeform, and we'll make sure that the 50,000 free credits is unlocked immediately against your account. Now what we're going to be doing over the next 15-20 minutes or so is we're going to be spending some time on some questions. We have a whole host of questions that have come through from the audiences. One of the biggest questions which is actually coming through is, and I'm actually paraphrasing here and I'm reading through multiple questions and I'm trying to connect the dots. One of the things that is coming through is when people are beginning or taking baby steps with experimenting with paid marketing, what are some of the banana skins that they need to avoid? What are some of the pitfalls that they need to be aware of that both of you can educate? Deepak, you want to go for this first?
Yeah. So, when it comes to paid marketing, if there is a little bit of room to experiment with, like, for example, if you can afford to spend 50,000 and not get any ROI on it, people can definitely try, because right now Facebook ads are extremely cheap. And if you know how to go ahead and configure the keywords in Google ads, you can definitely go ahead and do an experimentation. And what I would recommend is that sell something like, I'm selling like this 99 rupee product, right? And it costs me less than 99 rupees to get a sale for 99. So it becomes like my lead generation engine. And I run Facebook ads for it. So, that is very easy to do. But however, if, there are freelancers who are just starting out and everything, what I would recommend is that go for organic first, start a blog. And once you go ahead and start a blog, you will start having some visitors to your website. When you have visitors to your website, put the Google Analytics code and Facebook pixel there. And if you get to, let's say, 100 visitors a day, that's 3,000 visitors a month. What you will have is like, at least some 2,000 people will be built on your custom audience on Facebook. Correct. And from that custom audience, you can build like a lookalike audience. And once you build like a lookalike audience, you will be able to go ahead and, advertise to them on Facebook. So these are people who look like the people who have already visited your website. So it's very targeted. I mean, it's beyond the scope of this webinar to go into in-depth on how Facebook ads work. But people can just Google about it. I also have a free course on Facebook ads, so people can maybe check it out. So Facebook ads and Google ads are definitely the networks to go after. I wouldn't recommend anything else. Sometimes I'm like, sure, are they the only guys in town, only the game in town? But unfortunately, yes. If you want like targeted traffic at low cost, so targeted traffic. When I say targeted traffic, Google sends its own kind of targeted traffic where the keyword intent is very clear. Because people are searching for something and that you are targeting this person, you don't care whether this person, whatever age group, whatever gender, whatever demographics it is, the search intent is very clear, so it's targeted. Facebook may it's outbound, Google is inbound, it's search intent. Facebook may you are going and interrupting people, yeah, but Facebook ads are efficient because you can target the age group, the demographic. So have some idea about who your target customer is, and if you go on advertise to them on Facebook. So both are targeted in their own ways, but they are like worlds apart in the way the targeting works.
Thank you for that, Deepak. Vaibhav, over to you, man. Some nuggets of wisdom.
So what Deepak told is exactly what I do, to be very frank, right? Try to drive traffic organically and build something called as lookalike audiences on top of that, so that you don't have to do the guesswork. You let Facebook do the guesswork for you. So the other thing, when you're running performance or paid advertising, right? One thing to keep in mind, according to me, is give it some time to figure out. So Facebook has a very strong AI and ML model. So does Google in a way, right? I will talk more about Facebook here. Let it optimize by itself. A lot of times what we do is we run ads, we spend 1,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees or whatever. We don't see revenue coming in, or we are not happy with the revenue coming in. You're like, oh, this is not going to work. And we're going to say that, okay, Facebook ads doesn't work anymore, or doesn't work for me, so I'm not going to try it. That's the biggest problem, because you have to try it enough. Even though you're not really good at targeting, even though you're not really good at Facebook ads, if you just allow Facebook to optimize and tell Facebook what you're trying to achieve. Let's say I'm selling like a 500 rupee product. You tell Facebook that this product cost is 500 rupees. Okay. And I want to acquire a customer, which will cost me less than 500 rupees. And you say that this is a product on LinkedIn. So I would want people around LinkedIn space to like it. Even if I go as broad as LinkedIn, Veda and Deepak, you won't believe, I tested one cold audience yesterday which had only LinkedIn, nothing else, right? Super broad. Took me 2 days, and right now the ad set is running profitably because Facebook has such a evolved algorithm to itself.
Yeah.
It will do the work of finding for you. Stop trying to overcomplicate things, right? The other thing where a lot of people do mistakes, SME especially, man, this is going to be a noob point, but a lot of people do this mistake. Please add a Facebook pixel before you run ads. Please add a Facebook pixel. Facebook pixel is this tracking code that you can add to your website so that Facebook knows who is visiting your page, who is buying your product, who is not buying your product, and all the data around it. So please add the Facebook pixel. This is not a growth hack, but trust me, 50% of people fail here, right? Especially people who are doing the business for the first time. They're like, chalo ads run karte hain. Uske baad we will figure out if we should add the pixel or not. That is where you make the first mistake. Add the Facebook pixel. Trust Facebook, trust Mark Zuckerberg. They will do something for you.
Very interesting, Vaibhav. And just to add on what the two experts just said, when I first joined Healthify Me, it was a bit of a culture shock for me because for the first time in my life, Facebook actually began to work as a hard-hitting, hard-working, dhanda-driving, breadwinning performance marketing channel. Till such time, it was always Google and Google search that had worked for me because my previous experiences were in travel tech, where it was more of a mass category with already a lot of latent demand baked in into Google. So we could piggyback on that demand wave, right? Because there were already enough and more users who were searching for those keyword pools. Now in a category which was so very niche, such as health tech, where I was getting in, and it was also very close to the identity of an individual, right? Weight loss is something which is very close to the personal identity of an individual, and it also afforded us the ability to inject a very strong visual element in our communications. We used to have a lot of testimonial-led content, very similar to how Vaibhav operates.
Yeah.
So, which is the reason why Facebook actually worked well for us, because video content was actually something that would work really well. Plus, it was a very niche space. So, for the first time in my life, Facebook just didn't work as a quote-unquote brand building channel, but it also worked as a hard-hitting dhanda driving channel, which actually drove attributable ROI. So, that's also something for you to consider. By the way, guys, I see a lot of questions around Razorpay, whether Razorpay is the right fit for your business. Of course, it is the right fit for your business. If you have specific questions around pricing or around products, please do write to me. I take care of the SME business here. We would love to work out something bespoke for your business. I've just sent out my email ID here in the chat window. Feel free to write to me. I'll make sure that I hook you up with the right people from the sales team and we give you the best possible solution for your business needs. Some of the other questions that are coming through, again, is, for example, there are a lot of SMEs who are coming in, and one of the questions that people are coming up with is, how do I get started on digital? Should I hire an agency? Should I hire a freelancer? Should I hire a mentor? Should I do it myself? Should I roll up my sleeves? Should I do it myself? What would you advise? Vaibhav, you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, here's the thing. There's a reason why there are digital marketers, because when you're spending some level of money with a marketer, he has already come with a lot of experience. So you have to ask yourself what is important for you to save that extra 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 rupees or 50,000 or whatever that is, or to get business for you. A lot of times rolling off sleeves is great, but you have the time. And if you have that open-mindedness of testing out and losing money, right? But think about this, right? Like when you're going in the future, would you focus on your business or would you be focusing on running ads? So it's always better to get someone else on board who can do the job for you, who has figured it out, rather than you trying to break your head. Even if, let's say you're hiring, let's say, for example, let's say you hire somebody, a Pixel Track like agency, which does digital marketing, right? Even if they do it, it's always good for you to learn by yourself and understand what they're doing. That is great. But if you try to do everything by yourself, you want to run your own business by yourself, you want to build your own website also, if you want to make your own sales also, you want to run your own ads also, what this will do is, this will take your mind space from very other important aspects of your business into things that is not important for you or you're not a champion of. So let the masters do the job for you. Just hire, man. That's the easiest way to go forward. Just hire.
Deepak, some thoughts from you?
The problem is that it's very difficult to hire unless you are a funded startup.
Yeah.
All the marketers who are worth hiring, they can actually make more money doing something by themselves than coming and working in a company, unless they have,
But there are a lot of agencies, man. Come on.
There are a lot of agencies, but all these agencies, it's very difficult to choose the right agency. And one of the problems with a lot of big name agencies is that they are not pure digital agencies. Digital is a two-way communication medium. The way you take the customer to a journey, do attribution, all those things. A lot of agencies, unfortunately, even the very well-known names, I won't name anything, but the biggest names in the industry don't know anything about performance marketing and funnels and whatever it is. Everybody is like treating internet like a huge billboard. TV ads have become YouTube ads, print ads have become banner ads, and they do something called EDM, called electronic direct mailer. They will just design a HTML thing and send it on email. That's not how you do email marketing. People are here mostly because they received an email from us, and there is a different way to do email marketing. So what I would recommend is that my advice would be a little bit different than Vaibhav. There is the strategy part which the CEO or one of the co-founders have to take care of in terms of how the brand is positioned, because marketing is not something that you develop a product and then just like finance, HR, you have like one marketing department who will just go and market it. Marketing does not work like that. Advertising can work like that. You are not trying to do advertising, you are trying to do marketing. Marketing starts right from the community building and even understanding what the customers want, how to position the product, the design of the product, all the way to customer retention, brand advocacy, everything. So marketing is like a thin line which runs right from the conception of the product right towards the brand advocacy. So I feel that every CEO or a co-founder needs to have like an in-depth involvement in marketing. And what they cannot do is that they cannot outsource marketing strategy. They can outsource marketing activities. So they can hire freelancers, they can hire an agency, they can hire interns, or they can build a digital marketing team, get them to execute. But the clarity on the brand positioning, how am I going to position the market? Like, when you look at it, Steve Jobs is the chief marketing officer of Apple. He was the one who is like, this is the way you position it. This is the product line and everything. If the founder or the CEO is not taking care of it, then he is like disconnected with the audience. He is building something in his own mind and then trying to get a marketing agency to sell it. I have burnt my fingers myself trying to work with a lot of companies as a consultant like this. They would build a product which has no product market fit, and then they would say, Deepak, go and sell this. You are the greatest marketer, digital Deepak, go and sell this. And I cannot sell it no matter how much money they have, because there is just no product market fit. So I would say that there are two kinds of labs. One is the mind lab and one is the market lab. Most of the CEOs build the products in their mind lab. Don't build it in the mind lab, build it in the market lab. Go put out a scrappy product out, see what is the response, ask people, have a community, engage in the community, have like a little bit of a personal brand with your audience. That cannot be understated, and there is no other way to, build a great marketing engine for your business.
Yeah, completely attest to that, Deepak. And that's something that I do mention to a lot of the startups that I work with, that I mentor, that a lot of startups, they look at marketing as something which is external to the business. And as I said, they certainly do have a certain level of intimidation to this entire aspect of digital. So which is why I always encourage a lot of founders to roll up their sleeves and get into the thick of things when it comes to marketing. That's something that I always encourage, and great to see that there is similar resonance more or less from both of you. One of the other questions that is coming through from Zain Khan is that how do we look beyond our contacts? For example, if you're an early stage startup, you've got limited resources in terms of mind space, in terms of money, in terms of people. Well, obviously it's good to suggest that you need to look at your contacts and your network, your immediate network, your network of networks to build your initial set of early adopter customers. Are there some hacks that you can employ to go beyond? Any thoughts from both of you? Digital Deepak, you want to go for it first?
See, the thing is that once you have like a good product market fit and there is an adoption, I would not say that a lot of people think that, just because people are visiting their site, people are using their free app, there is product market fit. Real product market fit is when people are ready to take out their wallets and pay you. When you ask people whether they will buy, they will say that I will buy, but when you ask them to buy, they won't. You need to go ahead and test out if people are ready to buy. And if you have a product or service which solves a real problem in the market, and if people are ready to buy, then you should be able to do digital marketing, target customers, target a small pocket of customers, and make sure that you are making a profit out of the entire marketing activity. And a lot of people think that, okay, SEO is a free channel, social media is a free channel, but there is no such thing as free, because creating content and posting it on your blog also takes some time, and time is money, right? You need to have like a content writer who will go and publish things and all those things. So what I recommend is that obviously digital marketing is the best way to acquire customers in this day and age, unless a company is like heavily funded that they can go and put some branding ads on TV and newspaper or hoardings or whatever. But let's say for most of the audience who are here, digital marketing is the way. And I would say that the best way to acquire customers after you go out from your professional network is to go with an integrated digital marketing approach. You have a content piece. You definitely have a blog, talk to your audience. You have content. Around the content, you have social media and communities. And once you have these both, then slowly your search traffic will start coming in. SEO can be a very good way to go ahead and tap into search traffic. And as these three start working, then start building your email list. An email list should not be something that you build just to sell your products. Email list is something that you build to go ahead and keep your community alive and notify your community. Like for example, today we have around 2000 people in the webinar today because we sent out an email, right? So it's not just to sell, it's to create content, to create value, to create that community. So now you are basically putting content at the center, putting SEO, social media and email around it. And now you are running paid ads. You don't run paid ads to try to sell your product directly. You run paid ads to your content instead. That's what I do. I never run paid advertising to go and sell my product. I run paid advertising to go and sell my content first. And sometimes it's free content. So then people are engaged, people are building trust, then automatically, the ROI from the marketing will be better. So the best way to make wealth is to turn advertising into a profit. And if you cannot turn advertising into a profit, it's not the ad that doesn't work. The product is not one that is not working.
I love that line, Deepak. And I know there are a lot of CEOs who are actually listening in on this conversation, because one of the things that I have consistently observed is that most CEOs, the team that they love the most is the sales team, because they look at the sales guys as the guys who bring in the money. And when they look at the marketers, they look at the marketing team as the guys who end up spending their money. I love the fact that you mentioned that marketing is a profit center. You need to look at it as a profit center, and advertising as a profit center in itself. I love that fact. Vaibhav, there anything that you would like to add? We have time for one more question after this. Before we dive into that, a quick 30-second pearl of wisdom from you would be appreciated.
Yeah, I think it all depends on what your business is, how many customers do you want, and what you're trying to do with those customers. Let's say you're going with a B2C enterprise, B2B enterprise level customers, performance is not going to work. It goes on to an account-based marketing model. While if you're trying to acquire customers who are B2C, which is a low price, obviously digital marketing is the way to go. While if you're an FMCG, then you have to take a different channel. So marketing changes with channels. And also a lot of times we feel that marketing, like Deepak said, right? Like put money one side and you get revenue outside, and we calculate based on ROAS. Doesn't always work for every brand, right? Because for example, right, let's say Santoor soap, 15-20 rupees soap, they cannot run performance. It's not going to work for them. The reason they will run TVCs, the reason why they run billboards, and the reason why it's a very sales driven approach where you go to a shopkeeper and say, what is the new soap? And the guy says, go for Santoor, right? It all depends on the product that you are. Identify what your product is, and then try to, come up with a channel strategy. Don't build a channel strategy without understanding who your product is, what your product is, and where your potential customers are actually lying. Right? Because if I'm trying to run a Facebook ad for a soap or a detergent, the reason why brands don't do that is because the people who are going to buy a detergent and a soap are people who are sitting and watching soap operas in TV. That's your mom and your dad, not you, in most of the cases. Right? So understand where your customer lies, and based on that, build a strategy. But there's so many ways of going beyond it. If you want to go frugal, you can go with organic channels like LinkedIn. If you're in the B2B or a high customer value B2C space, but if you have the money, if you have raised a small round, or if you're willing to invest like a lakh or two, you can start leveraging digital marketing, right? If you have big sums of money and your idea is to build a brand so that eventually customer acquisition gets cheaper for you, you go with a billboard, you go with a brand campaign. So I would say we are going to live in a world where all the three, and something that we're totally forgetting is influencer marketing, which will drive you insane amount of traffic, and right quality traffic to your landing page or to your product page or whatever that is. Multiple channels can go on for 2.5 hours talking about pain points, but you get the idea. Understand what you're selling, then build a channel strategy.
Got it. Cool. Thanks for that, Vaibhav. A couple of, I'm just paraphrasing here, a couple of, repeated questions that are coming through. One is, what is the future of the entire payments ecosystem in the country? I think something that I mentioned earlier, would love to reiterate that, which is the fact that the months of, obviously March and April were tough months in the immediate aftermath of COVID, but the months of May, June, and July have been fantastic, record-breaking months at Razorpay that we have witnessed. We've seen a huge acceleration in terms of businesses that are first-time acceptors of digital payments. We've seen a huge upsurge there. We've also seen a huge upsurge of businesses which had previously shut down, who are now coming back to life and are receiving payments through digital means. We're also seeing not just a huge upsurge in terms of volume, we're also seeing a huge upsurge in terms of the sheer monies that these businesses are actually pulling through the Razorpay ecosystem, which essentially means these are not fly-by-night operators or flaky businesses which are coming, which are coming into play, but these are businesses with very strong business fundamentals and very strong business models which are coming in. We're seeing a lot of businesses from tier 2, tier 3, and below, which are servicing the local economy there, which is also coming through, which is again a testament to the entire strength of the fintech ecosystem in the country, the payments ecosystem in the country, and the vibrancy of the entrepreneurial ecosystem of the country. I think some very positive signs as we look ahead to the rest of the year. The other question that's also coming through is, I think this is something that we certainly need to talk about, is in light of COVID, and this I'm afraid is going to be the last question that we have time for today, is in light of COVID, the post-COVID new normal, what kind of changes do I need to make in my customer acquisition strategy and my engagement strategy? Vaibhav, Deepak, 30 seconds, please, if you could give us some quick takeaways.
Yeah, I think right now, when most of the businesses are a little bit pessimistic about the future, they are not very aggressive with, trying to, create that community and, bring in those customers into the funnel, which is actually giving a good opportunity for people, if they have the resources, put more time into understanding the customers, building community, building some marketing assets like content marketing channel and forums and groups and everything. And, in these times, you definitely have to be a little bit conservative with your spending, but this is the best time to acquire customers, because once the economy starts booming again, the customer acquisition cost will go through the roof. And right now it's like very, very low. And I have basically doubled my, customer acquisition spend, the monthly advertising that I do, since the lockdown, because, I'm like actually burning through all the runway I had, because I know that now the customer acquisition is cheaper and tomorrow it will go higher. And I am nurturing the customers and making sure that they are happy with me. And I am trying to build a brand right now. And that's what I think brands should do. If they have the resources, this is like a good time, because recession or times like this will always drive out the weak, inefficient competitors out of the market. And then the people who are able to stand and who have, worked hard, served their customers, they become the only option once the economy starts booming again. So it can actually be a good thing if it can be seen that way.
Vaibhav?
Awesome. I think for brands which are not moving much right now, I think it's time to build brand advocacy. It's basically time to find those, instead of, like I just made a LinkedIn post as well on the same thing. I strongly believe that the way brands are going to market is going to change. People are going to rely on smaller creators to create content for them. People are going to rely on 100 pieces of content on multiple channels rather than one piece of content going on a TV, right? So it's changing. All I would say is I don't know what's going to happen, to be very frank, because I have not seen the new world. What I would say is try to stay on top of the game and be okay, embrace the change rather than fighting it. That's the only way to live in this world.
Yep. Thank you for that, Vaibhav, Deepak. And I think we're almost out of time. It's been a fantastic hour-and-a-half long session. A lot of nuggets of wisdom from both of our experts. Thank you so much for this. Thank you for our entire audience for spending an hour and a half.
We should turn the chat on. We should turn the chat on. And guys, if you guys enjoyed the session, take a picture, put it on your Instagram, tag us, tag Razorpay, tag me, tag Veda, tag Deepak. It'll be amazing. And yeah.
And would like to reiterate some of the points that we mentioned earlier. If you're a business which is new to receiving payments, you're embracing digital payments for the first time, we have a coupon code for you, which is BUTTON50K, BUTTON 50K, all in caps, which you can use for receiving up to 50,000 rupees at no cost to you via Razorpay. That's something which you can do if you're an existing Razorpay customer. You also have the option to avail of the same benefit. There is a Typeform link that my colleague Shivani had shared a while back. I'll ask her to share the same thing again, and we will be sending you an email. Don't worry, with all of these details again, so you don't miss this. Some great feedback coming through, a lot of very positive sentiment that we have observed from the entire community. And as I said, and just to reiterate what Vaibhav and Deepak were saying, we are noticing a lot of positive sentiment from the entire startup and SME community in the country. We're seeing a lot of new people who are coming on board, receiving digital payments and processing greater volumes of monies, which to me is a very, very important statistic for us to observe, which means that businesses are solid ones.
Veda, one more thing. I think there has been a lot of requests for recording of this session. We'll be sharing the recording very soon. We'll share it with a single pager of all the insights that you guys have given today. So we'll be sharing the recording very soon. We have we have an amazing amount of tweets going on. It's crazy. We are actually trending at 14, and it'll be great if we can do better. Like, if all of us can just come together and tweet more, get more engagement, it'll be amazing.
Yeah, would be great to get into the top 10.
So Shivani, if you can share the Twitter tags again, I just close the chat.
Yes, so I'm just going to go
so
ahead
that people
and share
can take it. Guys, go ahead and put a feedback on what you learned about this today's session. Instead of just putting amazing, good, or whatever it is, which I have already been saying, just talk about 2 or 3 takeaways from this webinar of what you learned today.
Yep.
We'll
I'm
be
just
sharing
giving a
the
minute for
recording.
Shivani to share. Shivani, do you want to quickly just type it out again? The coupon code, the Typeform link, and the hashtag, which is Unlock Growth.
Quickly, give me 1 second. I'll just go ahead and share this. We'll be sharing the recording over an email, the email with which everybody has registered. They would be getting the the recording there. You can tweet with hashtag Unlock Growth. Please mark Razorpay, Digital Deepak, and Vaibhav, and get great engagement. We have vouchers worth 5,000 for 5 people. Here we are also sharing the place where you can sign up. Like, give me 1 second. I'll just share details of how you can get the 50,000 rupees credit as well.
Cool. Button 50K. Remember that coupon code, guys. That's what you use for having the opportunity to receive 50,000 bucks from your customers at no cost to you. Of course, if you're an existing Razorpay customer, use that link and please fill in your details. We'll make sure you are also able to avail the same facility. Unlock Growth is the hashtag for you to use. Hashtag Unlock Growth. Feel free to use that. Talk about how the session has been. Feel free to give your feedback on Twitter. Would love to hear from you guys on how the session has been. Would love to hear more from all of you. A big thank you once again to Digital Deepak and to Vaibhav for sparing an hour and a half. A big thank you to all of the attendees for taking time off. A big thank you to Shivani and to Team Razorpay for having organized this. It's been a pleasure anchoring the session, and I hope you guys had as much fun as I did, and I'm sure Deepak, Vaibhav, and Team Razorpay did in actually bringing this session to you. I hope you guys stay safe wherever you are. Stay safe. Take care of yourself. Take care of your health. I think that's very important in this, in the kind of times that we live in. And I wish you the very best of luck in your business. Stay safe. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See you guys. Thank you. Thank you so much.